The Chiefs have made some free agency moves, and there's still likely some more to be coming as they prepare for the NFL draft in the coming months. Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Hey, Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back for another episode of Locked On Chiefs, your daily podcast covering the Kansas City Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thank you for always making Locked On Chiefs your first listen of the day. Don't forget, we're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube as well. There's going to be a lot of talk over the coming weeks about the NFL draft. We will be getting to that a little bit later. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. So check that out at FanDuel.com. Kansas City has made a lot of free agency moves. They are getting ready for the 2025 season. We will get into what the moves that they've made. We're going to be talking about how they get positioned best for the NFL draft a little bit later in the show. We're going to talk about what they could still be doing, and then we're going to get into a salary cap update right now. Interestingly enough, we don't have a ton more information than we have had even a couple of days ago because the Nick Bolton contract numbers have still not come out yet. Do find that very interesting because I would have thought that it would have been released by now. That tells me that the original numbers reported are not what they had seemed to be. So something to watch there. Go check out RGR Football. Go check out KC Chiefs Corner. We will have you covered with more information. As soon as I get the Bolton contract, I will be having that up at Chiefs Corner. And you will get more information from us at 816-357-8781 for you locos on the text line. Now, when we start talking about the salary cap, this is something obviously last week, Kansas City made some big moves. Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones restructured both of their contracts. They got to a point where they were negative, I think, like $9 million when it was about to open. They currently have about $27.6 million in cap space. But again, we don't know the signing for Christian Fulton. We don't know the signing for Nick Bolton. And we don't know the signing numbers for Bailey Zappi, Robert Tonyan, or it does look like actually we do have the numbers now for Elijah Mitchell that did get released. I hadn't quite seen that. Looks like it's $1.4 million in a base salary, prorated bonus of $250,000, another $850,000 in a bonus. But his salary guarantee is only $1.1 million, salary cap number of 1.7. So it was reported he could get up to 3.5. But at this point, it's really a $2.5 million contract with a $1.35 million guarantee. So we got a prorated signing bonus of $250,000, guaranteed salary of 1.1, and base salary of 1.4. So we'll see how that turns out. But a smaller cap number. And I think that this is a very fair deal for Elijah Mitchell. I do think that he could be a guy that could come in and give the Chiefs something that they don't have with his ability to have the breakaway speed coming through the line. So I do like that. But it's not a deal that is going to break the salary cap either. So I think that that's a very good sign for what they got for Elijah Mitchell. The problem that you have right now is you still don't know what Nick Bolton signed. I mean, like, that's my problem looking at the salary cap and trying to figure out what Kansas City can still do. Right before I came on and started the show, I read something that the Chiefs were looking at, trying to bring back Charvarius Ward. Obviously, before the Christian Fulton signing, they were trying to be in the Justin Reed market, but I think their market numbers were a lot different than what Justin Reed ended up getting in New Orleans. So they have tried to keep a little bit more of their defense together. They tried to bring back a guy like Ward who they felt fit their defense better than what they have. But they did get Christian Fulton. I love that move for them. I do think that that's going to be a great signing. The other thing that's going to be that I'll talk about a little bit more in this next segment is going to be what could really affect Kansas City in the future, and that's going to be a Trent McDuffie contract, because there are some reports that there is some new cornerback money that is going around out there. There are still some crazy things that are happening in the NFL with free agency and teams re-signing their own players in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to huge contracts. Higgins got about $25 million a year, could be worth up to $30 million a year. He's actually just a little bit short of, I think, $29 million a year on APY. And Chase got over $40 million, $40.1 million a year. Crazy numbers for a wide receiver. He is now the highest paid non-QB in the NFL. How are they going to build a team around that? That's going to be something to watch, but Kansas City doesn't have to worry about that. They just have to play him. When you look at the Chiefs salary cap at $27.6 million, obviously Christian Fulton's going to take up, I would imagine, at least 6 or 7 or 8 of that. I would imagine Nick Bolton's going to do the same. So that really takes you to probably 10 to 12. But the big key there is that still gives you room to go out and do other deals with guys that you want to bring back. They lost Derek Nottie. He is going to be, I believe, a New York Jet, so he's not going to be back. So that's one of the moves that I thought that maybe they could do in the next couple of weeks when there wasn't really a market. But maybe they still get a deal done with like a guy like Mike Pennell that gives you a defensive tackle that he can come in, he can help play the run. You already signed another defensive tackle in Tillery, and I think that was a great move. It doesn't look like those numbers have been released yet either on him. So it's going to be a lower amount, I would imagine, but I do not have the specifics of that contract yet. But I do think that, he can add something, especially give you a little bit of pass rush. It's not going to be great, but it will be something more than they already had on the roster. I do think that that's a good move for them. They brought back Bailey Zappi. I think that was an interesting move as well. It's going to take up a little bit of salary cap space, but probably not too much, I would imagine. So I think overall you're looking at about $27 million. Probably gets down to about 10 to 12 when you start looking at getting Nick Bolton and some of these other guys under contract. They will just be kicking off some of the lower players, so it's not going to take up their entire cap number in 2025. Something to watch, though. I do think, once we get the Bolton contract numbers, I think we're going to see it's not near what people were reporting it was. And the reason I say that, and I said it at the time, I'm waiting for what this contract looks like when we actually get the real numbers, because it's taken over a week now and we still don't have the numbers. That tells me that it's not what was reported. It's not going to be really 3 for $15 million a year, 45 million. It's more than likely going to be closer to 10 or 11 with some, injury guarantees, not really full guarantees. We will see. If the agent was really happy about it, the numbers would be out there right now. At this point, they're not. So there's something more going on. But Bolton will be back in Kansas City. That's the important thing. And I do think that that's something that this team should be happy with, and the fan base should be happy with. Is he a great player? Is he, the best linebacker in the NFL? No. Is he somebody that can play in their system and knows their system very well and can be very useful? Absolutely. He has flaws, but I do think that they know exactly what they are and they can plan around them and they can put teammates around him to help with some of the things that he struggles with. But I do think that's a great signing for Kansas City. When we get back, we're going to talk more about some of the moves that they could be doing that are coming up. And one of the things that actually plays into what Kansas City could be doing in the near future. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. I personally love Monarch Money. I've been using it about 6 or 7 months now. I have just absolutely loved the interface. It is so easy to use. I enter all my information and I can see when are my bills coming up that are going to be paid in the next couple of days. When, what's my budget every single month? Where's my money going? What are my investments doing? What is my net worth? I can see that on my phone at my fingertips on a daily basis. It is amazing. I absolutely love it. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get into the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. There are so many things to go look at with FanDuel. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com right now and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Kansas City has a lot of different options of what they can do at this point. They are in a situation where I think they're going to have somewhere between 10 to 12 million in cap space after all these moves have actually matriculated and actually hit the roster. If you look at their need for their rookies as of right now, obviously before any trades, looks like they need about 2.7 million for the draft class. So I would say that it's pretty close to somewhere between 9 and 10 million that they probably have left over once all of the moves that we know about have actually hit the salary cap for 2025. Now, the big key there is, let's say they get to where they're at about 9 to 10 million. They still have the Trey Smith deal, which I do think that they're going to get done. I do think that they're going to figure something out. Right now, he's on the cap for 23.4. I'm guessing it's going to be closer to 8 or 9. Which would free up, somewhere between, I'm just going to say ballpark it between $10 and $15 million a year. I'm going to leave it pretty wide ballpark there, mainly because I'm not sure, is this a situation where the Chiefs want to spend more money on him up front and not backload deals like they normally do, or are they going to backload a deal and use more money in the future for Patrick Mahomes and all the other players that they have to pay in the next couple of years? The key is that they still have a ton of cap space. They probably are going to need somewhere around 3 to 4 million to function for the regular season. That's generally what they do. They're probably going to lose, I would say, 3 to 4 million just when you go from top 51 to your normal accounting for all set 69 players plus anybody on injury reserve or any kind of injury report. So I would imagine that you're really looking at about maybe $2 to $3 million that you have available currently before you start talking about a Trey Smith extension. But the big key is, what can they still do? Derek Nottie is a New York Jet, so he's not going to be coming back. It would be a very cheap move to bring in a guy like maybe Mike Pennell. That's possible they would do that because you don't have to have all of this on the salary cap. You don't have to worry about your free agency class. You don't have to worry about your free agency, your draft class. You don't have to worry about, September right now. You could go out and sign a guy like Charles Omenihu. Can you get him on a 1-year deal for Prove It? Give him a $2 or $3 million base with, 6, 7, 8 million in incentives and go that direction. You could try it, see if he'd be interested. Maybe that's a direction that they go. It does sound like they had interest in Justin Reed. It sounds like they had interest in Christian. It sounds like they were curious about trying to bring back Shavarius Ward. Obviously, that didn't happen when he got $18 million a year in Indianapolis. The big key here, though, is that you have all this cap space, and things are happening in free agency. We already kind of talked about Jamar Chase. We already kind of talked about Higgins and how that's going to affect the rest of the AFC. But the big thing for Kansas City is, it was just announced right before I started recording this that the Houston Texans have signed Derek Stingley Jr. to a contract extension, 3 years, $90 million. Now, that seems outlandish, paying a corner 3 years, $90 million for a 3-year extension for $90 million, $30 million. And corners right now in the NFL, I think the top corner, if I remember right, is somewhere around 22 or 23 million a year. 25 million a year. JC Horn just hit that at 25 million a year this year. We will see what the real numbers come out on Stingley. The big question is he was under a 5th-year option. Or he would have been under a 5th-year option, which I'm sure they're going to pick up, which his 5th-year option would have been 17.6 million. But the key here and the thing to watch, Horn got his contract. Stingley now has his. I would imagine that you're going to have Sauce Gardner getting his at some point in the near future. What are the Chiefs going to do with Trent McDuffie? Right now, he's under contract for the Chiefs for about $2.6 million, I believe, for this season. Yeah, 2.6. So sorry, 4.4 is his total salary cap number. 2.6 is his salary. So you're looking at, you probably can't lower that number. That's fine. I don't think you need to. I think that's a reasonable number. Karlaftis, who's also in the same draft class, has a $3.8 million cap hit in 2025. Don't think you're going to be lowering that at all. But that's two guys that I think that you should be considering trying to figure out right now because they're going to be cheaper this year than they're going to be next year. And I do think Kansas City's looking at this because with Derek Stingley getting 3 years, $90 million, it's going to be 3 years on top of the fifth-year option. So what does it come down to? It's going to be, basically a 5-year deal because he's going to have this year that he's already getting paid, plus he's going to have the fifth-year option, which they're going to pick up, and then he's going to have $90 million. It's going to be $90 million at that point going forward. So I do think that this is going to be something where the APY is a lot less than what's being reported right now. I do think it's going to be closer to something like maybe 26, 27. But this is the time to get Trent McDuffie done. This is the time where you go in and you try to figure out how do we get McDuffie here on the long term? Because like I said, his fifth-year option right now is 13.63. I do think that it's possible that they stay within the realm of that cap number in 2026 and maybe even looking at George Karlaftis's fifth-year cap number, which is 15.1.2 basically. For an edge, it's a little bit different, a little bit more money, even though he's drafted later than a corner because they get paid more. I do think that they start looking at both of those guys. That's how they could spend some of this cap space that they have. Extend both of those guys, give them deals, give them large signing bonuses that you can offset against for the next 3 or 4 seasons, next 5 years. Use some of the cap space this year, but you can get back some of their, if you give them bonuses, you can get back some of their salary this year. It looks like they could get about 1.5 probably back from McDuffie and maybe 1.2 back from Karlaftis if they use signing bonus, and still probably keep it reasonable around 4 to 5 million, maybe 6 or 7 for both those guys if you use big signing bonuses. So that's something to watch. Are they going to sign them to extensions? Another guy that I think that they could be looking at trying to extend is Leo Chenal. Obviously, he doesn't have a fifth-year option, so a little bit more, a little bit closer to home, something that needs to get done right now as opposed to maybe down the line a little bit longer. But obviously, I don't think he's not on the same par as a guy like Karlaftis, or definitely not on the same par as, a guy like Trent McDuffie, who I think both of those guys probably Kansas City wants to continue to have here. Is Karlaftis a number one DN that you feel fantastic about? No, but I think he is a very, very solid number 2. And you still probably need a higher end defensive end 1. But I think Karlaftis has played well enough in Kansas City that he can be paid a decent amount of money. It doesn't have to be top tier money because he's not a top tier player, and you could keep him and make him happy in the long term. Trent McDuffie is obviously the one that they need to get done, and they need to get done the sooner the better because Sauce Gardner is going to get paid, and he's going to get paid even more than what you just saw Derek Stingley Jr. get. The question, and that's really what this all comes down to, is what is Stingley's real numbers? Because we don't know. 3 years for $90 million, that's what's being reported right now. But again, it's really a 3-year extension on top of what he already has, plus I'm sure the fifth-year option. So it's not like they're going to get rid of the fifth-year option. So it's really going to be a 5-year deal, and $90 million over 5 years isn't great. So you're looking at probably, I would say, 26, 27 in total, maybe when it comes down to APY. But $90 million in new money, not necessarily $90 million a year. So I do think that that's really what's going to come down. And if he gets a deal that's 25, 26 million over the next 3 or 4 seasons, that is expecting what I would think that Trent McDuffie would get. Is that what I would wish the Chiefs could pay him? No, but there's no chance that they could have got it done sooner. So at this point, it's get it done when he has the fifth-year option still available, because it helps you in negotiating. It helps you keep the price down a little bit. And he has played well enough to be a all-pro. I do think that he is going to have an even better season this year, especially considering Christian Fulton should be playing outside, Jalen Watson should be playing outside. That allows you to move McDuffie into the nickel where he thrives. And I do think that that's a huge boon for this defense. So I expect that they're going to be working on trying to get a deal done with Trent McDuffie. That is what I think that they're going to do with what they have left salary cap wise. But let's talk about what they could do and how they could position themselves for the NFL draft in the coming months up next.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
So what do the Chiefs have left? At this point, I think you have to feel pretty good about the wide receiver room. I understand that some people are going to say that you still need more talent there. I think you do. They did add Juju Smith-Schuster back. That's another addition. Is it a great addition? Is it going to really move the needle? No. But it gives them a valuable number 4 wide receiver that knows the offense. They know exactly what Juju can do. He can step in and he can be productive, and he can help you in the Rashee Rice role for sure, especially early on in the season when Rashee Rice is likely to be missing. You obviously have QB figured out. You have Gardner Minshew. Now you have Bailey Zappi. So you have 4 guys that I think they feel pretty good about. Only 3 of them are going to be here likely in 2025. So it's going to be a question, can Oladokun do anything, or is he going to be the odd man out and Zappi's going to be on the practice squad? We will see. I still think that they do look and try to add a running back in the draft. I think that is going to be a priority. I don't know that it's going to be somebody as high as some people necessarily want. A lot of people have been talking about 3rd, 4th, 5th round somewhere for Kansas City. I don't think it's that big of a need. I think it would be great, but I think that you could probably get a better value in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. And I do think that when you look at what they already have on the roster, it would not surprise me for them to pick up another running back to add to this offense. The other position, when you start looking at the tight end room, one of the easiest things to forget is that Jared Wiley got hurt last year. He's going to be back in 2025. I do think that that's going to be a huge addition. Is it going to be something that's going to take over and change the offense? No, but he does give you a piece that you didn't have in 2025 at all, really, and I do think that that's something that's going to help this offense. Do they still look at tight end? I think that they need to. Is it going to be something they're going to put a lot into? I don't think so, considering they just invested in Wiley last year and they paid Gray. Offensive line wise, the question is left guard. Everybody believes it's going to be Kingsley Suamataia. I believe that's probably going to be the case. And you look and you feel like Jalen Moore can be your guy in 2025 at left tackle and maybe even in 2026. But it's not going to shock me if Kansas City tries to make a move to go get a left tackle. The whole reason, everything that they've done in this free agency class so far is set themselves up to be able to do whatever they want in the first 3 rounds. Do they need a defensive tackle? Yeah. They just signed Tillery, but they still need a defensive tackle. Could that happen in the first round? Could it happen in the second or third? Absolutely. I think that that's a definite need that they could address in those rounds. But is it something that they absolutely have to do? I don't think so. I think that they have enough talent, and they brought back Malik Herring, who's another guy that plays in and out. So I think that that's something that they're looking at, is if they are not able to bring back a guy like maybe Charles Omenihu, I think they probably still want back, but doesn't have the market that he was wanting to have. Is somebody like, a draft pick early on a possibility? Yeah, it's possible if somebody falls that they really like, but they have to get a young defensive tackle that's going to be able to help a pass rush. If they can get that, then great. If they can't, they could be going with a guy like Mike Pennell and bring him back. And you're still sitting here with the guys that you had from last year, and you have Tillery as well. It's not the perfect defensive tackle position. That's definitely something I hope they address. But I'm not going to think that they are stuck going defensive tackle in the first 2 rounds just because of what they already have on the roster. Chris Jones is your superstar. Yes, you want to put something next to him, but it's not an immediate, absolute have-to-have need like left tackle was earlier this offseason, and it's not really even a spectacular need now. When you look at defensive end, I think that they could add something there. Linebacker, they're pretty good for the next year. Could they add another linebacker? Could they add a guy like Willie Gay? I think that it's possible. I don't think it's probable in free agency because of, they already have Chenal. They're going to be taking basically Chenal off the field to bring in Willie Gay. It's possible that they go that direction, especially since Gay isn't under contract, and maybe they could get him for cheap. but I don't think that linebacker is going to be a position that they're going to be focusing on in the draft unless they can find somebody to come in and basically be a Willie Gay-esque guy in a year or two. Corner-wise, I think that they have to feel pretty good about who they have on the roster right now. You have Christian Fulton, Trent McDuffie, and Jalen Watson. I think are your 3 starters. Josh Williams is your number 4. You have Roland Walls from last year. I think you would imagine he's probably 5. That doesn't even count Najee Johnson, who they brought back on a tender for almost $3.4 million. So corner's pretty good. Safety's a position that I would not be shocked if they look at, especially early on, trying to get a safety that is a free safety. They don't really have one on the roster right now. So that's one of those positions that I would look at early on in the draft. But really, that's what you're looking at. I mean, safety-wise, I think that you could be looking in the first 3 rounds. Is that a position they generally focus on in the first 3 rounds? They've done it before with Brian Cook. Could they do it again? Yeah. After losing out on Justin Reed, that's possible if they go that direction. But they got Jaden Hicks, who I think they love. And I do think he's going to play a huge piece in this roster going forward. But really, I think what you're looking at is defensive tackle, left tackle. I still am not going to be shocked, and I've said this multiple times, wide receiver is still an option and probably will be just about every single year, because I do think Kansas City wants to continue to keep that room young. And one of the bigger reasons to keep that room young and keep it cheaper is because look at what just happened in Cincinnati. Jamar Chase, $40.1 million. T. Higgins, $25 million. That could be up to $30 million. Chiefs don't have that type of money that they want to pay those types of players. Can they? Yes, because teams can make it work. But I don't think Cincinnati is going to be able to make it work very well. If T. Higgins doesn't play, 13, 14 games a season for them, they're going to be hurting, and they start slow. It's going to hamper their ability to really, contend in the playoffs and contend for Super Bowls in the future, having 3 guys making close to $120 million a year combined between Higgins, Burrow, and and Chase. So where do the Chiefs focus? Left tackle, I think, is number 1. Wide receiver is still probably one of those positions, but they filled both of those positions to an extent to where you feel like they could get by. They're not going to be stuck having to go those positions. They're not going to be looking desperate. The biggest question when it comes to this draft, and it comes to any draft for Kansas City, is anybody going to be willing to trade with them to give them the ability to go up and get somebody? Because that's the key. If they can trade up and go get a blue chip prospect, I don't care if it's a defensive tackle. I don't care if it's a left tackle or a wide receiver. I'd care a little bit if it was a safety, because I don't think that's a blue chip position. But if they can trade up and go get a position of need that they really need in the first round, and they don't have to give up a ton to go do it, I think that that's value at this point. They have the ability to go into the 25 season with most of their starters already intact at all positions, other than maybe a few questions at, backup defensive tackle, I guess specifically, maybe defensive end, depending on how you look at it. But I think they already really have the safety positions, the corners position taken care of, and everything on the offensive line, at least starter-wise. Can you improve at those positions? Yes. Can you get backups that are going to be valuable? Absolutely. But they're in great shape. This is what Veach does every single year. And the biggest key for this team going forward is to keep cheap talent around Patrick Mahomes, to be able to, draft cheap talent to add to the roster, to be able to keep the players that they want to be able to keep and keep the cornerstones you want to build around. And I think Trent McDuffie is one of those guys, like we talked about in the last segment. That is what I think that they need to be doing to position themselves best for the NFL draft. What do you think? What is it that you think Kansas City needs to be doing over the next couple of weeks to get ready for the NFL draft? Because they have 4 picks in the top 100. They're going to be busy with all of those picks, and they have a chance to really reshape some of this roster for years to come if they hit on some of these picks. Let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate it, and we will talk to you tomorrow.